right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the MPO meeting. It's Thursday, February 10th, 2022, and it is 10 o'clock, so we're good. Could we start off with the invocation followed by the pledge? Let's stand for the invocation.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This mic.
Okay, is that on? Okay. I want to thank everyone again for being here. Can I get you right now to silence your electronic devices? Let's see, we're going to do the roll call, but what I want to do before we do that is we have someone here from Newport Richey, and Todd McClary, is that? Port Richey, I'm sorry. Todd McClary, I'm sorry. So we'll call him for Scott. So if you could go ahead with the roll call.
Mayor Camille Hernandez.
Here.
Mayor Scott Tremblay, represented by Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilman Matt Murphy.
Here.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey. Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Here.
Chairman Lance Smith.
Here, thank you. And I know we have an item after this for the clerk needs to have for the call for publication, or proof of publication.
Yes. The items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on January 23rd, 2022.
All right, thank you. And Todd, thank you for filling in for us today. I appreciate that. Very good to meet you, too. Now is on the agenda is a call for public input from any citizens who are out there, and I think we may have someone to speak. Rob Park? Just state your name and address for the record, Rob. We welcome you today, too.
Thank you. My name's Rob Park. I live at 9614 Aaron Cutoff, Land Lakes, Florida. Gotti. So I'm here first to put up a slide about Aaron collector roads. Pop up momentarily. Mostly all I'm doing here is I want to be sure that I want to ask you what's highlighted in yellow and underlined in red. Does everybody understand what that says and what it means? The reason that I say that, I live on a collector road. 99.9% of the traffic is arterial. Okay, so I mostly make it get on record. So if we could go to the next slide. You remember when back in grade school and a teacher asked you about the two trains going from New York to Boston? One train departs at 8 o'clock, travels at 45 miles an hour with no stops. The other train departs at 8 o'clock, travels at 55 miles an hour with 4 or 5 minute stops. Which time will each train get to Boston? I'd like you to consider that same scenario for State Road 52. If there are no stoplights on State Road 52, the travel time for 10 miles at 45 miles an hour is 13 minutes and 20 seconds. And you can see the difference in the times and the speeds of stops. So if we can show the other slide, the next one, number 3. What I'm suggesting, when you have all of this new construction, the new road coming in for 52, you split it. You split it way wide so that there won't be any lights either way, and you have big, long, sweeping U-turns, and in the middle section, you would have your gas stations and your stores, your restaurants, and so as people are going up and down the road and pulling into those, when they get ready to leave, all they have to do is go out the other side and they can continue on down the road. I know you have Amazon coming in, and they're gonna be a big user of that road. So the pros, it'll take you less time, no stop and go, waiting for the person to put their phone down in front of you. I'm sure some of you have seen that. Fuel savings, no braking, accelerating, or idling. Maintenance, you have no lights to take care of. There's less road wear. Safety, it eliminates complicated intersections and no one has time to look at their phones. And the convenience, like I mentioned, about the gas station shops and restaurants in the middle way. The only con that I can think of would be the landowner cooperation. Property lines would have to be swapped, but there's no other cost other than that. It's something that would be different for Pasco County, other than what's going on 54 and 56. I'm sure everybody's been down there. This is the way that y'all could go about directing it differently.
Well, we thank you for that input. And it was a really good presentation, too. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you for coming out today.
Chairman Smith,
Yes.
can we make a motion to receive and file the PowerPoint that
So
you
moved.
presented?
I have a motion and a second to receive that PowerPoint. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
Chair.
keeping me straight. Yes.
Quick question, what is this meeting sign-in that's being passed around?
I don't know. I just
Gee,
blindly signed it.
Who's is this for?
Primarily, we'll need it for audience members.
Yeah, I don't know why I was up here, that's what I was going in. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't know if it was something new that was recently implemented.
It was a newly implemented,
I was wondering why you had that.
I know, it's like sitting in front of me.
and I'd also like to note for the record that Commissioner Starkey has arrived, so we're glad you're here. We have a nice full group today. Let's see. And there's no one else to speak publicly at that point in the meeting? No one? And I don't know if we still do the online or not, but somebody tell me if anybody's out there? No? Okay. Thank you. All right. Let me get this. So we are at the approval of the minutes, of the prior minutes. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item we have are the advisory committee reports, and who's going to be giving those today? We'll have the BPAC first.
So we'll have the BPAC with Dr. Stovall.
Very good. Thank you for coming out,
Good morning.
Dr. Stovall. Good to see you.
Good to see you all. We've had 2 meetings at BPAC since I last reported to you. Our meeting in December was December 15th, and we actually got to meet at Zephyr Hills City Council chambers, so thank you, Lance, for that. We had a good report at that meeting. It's something that you have been working on with staff, and Carl provided us an overview of the new project prioritization methodology that we were pretty impressed with, particularly it's got a feature built in that you don't time things out. You have a longevity score there, which is really good. And so we were anxious, of course, to see that applied as it goes forward to any kind of bike ped projects. We did get a review of the US 19 Rapid Transit Study that you all had heard prior on December 9. Very impressive report. We heard about the project for some help on the intersection of Adair Road and Morningside at SR 52 in Dade City, and I know that is going to be heavier traffic as we go on, so it's good that you're looking at that ahead. And then we got information on work on SR 52 and US 98 in Clinton. There's a lot happening all over the county, but it's very, for us on the east side, there's a lot of good things I think are going to improve traffic flow there. We talked about the US Bike Route 19. I think I mentioned that to you earlier. There's a group called the Adventure Cycling Association. It's a national group, and they publish riding maps across the country. And this US Route 19 would go north to south in Florida, end up in South Florida. They want to go down to 301 and then 39 corridor. So we have some opportunity to talk to them about the precise route. And of course, we want them to conform to the route that Sam Bennick is going to finalize to connect the Withlacoochee Trailhead to the Hardy Trail, which we have a facility there. Tourism has built a bike hub there, so we want to be sure we have that included in the information. And we talked about that some more at our next meeting as well. We reviewed the various trail projects that are either in progress or likely to start being built pretty soon, and we're very impressed with how much is going on there and how much is happening in the county. It's an active and exciting time. And then we looked at the calendar and approved dates for the next year, which you have seen. And the good news about our calendar is now that we're getting past COVID, we get to go back to our rotation of meetings. And our prior to COVID activity had been a meeting at East, Central, and West Pasco. It makes it easier for members to come and be participating. And then we got a really kind of a great feel-good report because Tina had participated with something called On Bikes, which is a bike building and giveaway to kids program that happened before Christmas. It's a wonderful thing that occurred. Our next meeting was in January on the 26th at Starkey Ranch Library, and we started off with good news from Commissioner Starkey, who informed us that some discussions with the developers of the RP Park out there on Lake Iola Road on the east side had resulted in an agreement to do a shoulder widening for us. And if you kind of follow the history of that part of the county, we have very, very narrow shoulders, and for the cyclists, the roadway cyclists, that's dangerous. And so if we can get somebody to help us to start getting those shoulders built, that's a wonderful thing. We had quite a bit of discussion among members, and one of the things that they expressed was they would like to see bike ped issues before they come to you. But you know, our new meeting schedule facilitates that quite well, so I think that's going to take place for them, and they'll be happy for that. Then a happy report. I've talked to you before about a map process, either a paper map or an online map, to help cyclists to get from trail to trail. And the good news is that online map is almost finished. It's in final testing phase, and it is a joint operation between our county and Pinellas and Hillsborough. And so the cyclists would have the map on their phone. It would take them just like your GPS does in your car, show them where they are. It's very exciting to be at this stage. We should see kind of a final report of that in March, and after that it gets released, I hope. So that's a project that's been coming for many years. Then we had a discussion about a zoning overlay. So I would just say here's the idea. We all know that trails increase real estate values. That's been documented across many parts of the country. We also know that people that ride bicycles would like to have a place to stop and perhaps get something to drink or eat or whatever. And so the idea of an overlay is to allow for commercial development along the pathway of trails, hopefully facing the trail to make that inviting place for the cyclists to stop. So that would be something that we would hope that you would be able to work with the zoning folks to perhaps create such an overlay. And the last thing we did is, again, looked at that bike route. We really wanted to ask them to conform to that part of the Hardy Trail connector that we have going. We think that would be good for them and good for us. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stovall. Does anybody have questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Mariano.
Yes.
Dr. Stovall, thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much for all you do, especially on the trails. I've got two ideas. One I want to run by you that you can be actively involved in.
Okay.
On Lake Iola Road, the development that came to us on Tuesday.
Yes.
I was looking at, they picked a number of 6 feet for the shoulder width.
Okay.
And other than one steep in-grade at the one start of that road along the project.
Right.
I says, well, what if we went to an 8-foot wide path instead of a 6? They're going to look at that. So
Okay.
if you think it's very viable to go to that larger size, I think they've got the room to make that happen. So I think you can pursue that a little further.
I think bicyclists would be happy with a wider ride, wider space. So, yes.
Six is good, but I'm saying if we
No,
want to get
I
8,
understand.
you can possibly get 8. So if you would put
It's
an
never
input that you'd
bad to
like
go
see.
wider.
That's what I'm saying. And you bring up another point too, like for
Okay.
future projects that are coming up. 5A Road has got the trail coming alongside that.
Yeah.
From past the library down to 5A near the hospital, There's the big developments coming in, 140 some odd homes, Emerald
Okay.
Isles. And in there, they were gonna go put a regular sidewalk. We're gonna then have to come in and tear it out, depending on how construction was gonna go, and then we're gonna go redo the road, do it again. We're now working with that developer coming forward. So I think the MPO needs to make sure we work with our development team to make sure when we have a development coming alongside these things, that should just automatically been included through the
Absolutely.
process coming forward with their plans. And that
Makes
did
sense.
not happen. It's gonna happen now, but, you know, if we didn't pick up on it early enough, it would have been a disaster to go put it in, tear it out, and then coordinate. Now it can be better for the development as well as coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Make,
Thanks.
that's a good report too, thank you. All right.
Commissioner Oakley?
I just want to add something about the bicycles. I was visiting on Saturday, Travelers Rest
Yeah.
residential park. It's been there for 50 years and been a great part of our community out in that area. The roadway you're talking about where the RV park is recommended, and I think they've already agreed for the 6 foot. And I think that's what maybe the standards are is a 6 foot, but we look into it and see if we can get a little bit wider. Hopefully it works out for everybody. But when I came out of there and came on to Lake Olive Road and hit 41, County Road 41 and turned back toward Dade City, I came on past Lake Jasmine, and right there at the top of the hill, bikers were coming in a single file on the opposite side of the road, but turning in front of me on Jasmine. And I noticed them, and then right after I passed that intersection, I got behind a lane of bikers on the road, and there's no wide shoulders out there at all.
No.
And that is a route they normally ride,
That's right.
but somehow we need to get that put in. And I heard there might be possibly a grant or something that could. we
Safety
reach
safety
out.
money somewhere? That's
Some
how
kind of
Hernando
safety
County
money,
did,
because
Hernando
They
County.
take up about at least 3 foot of a lane. You cannot drive by them and stay in your lane.
Right.
You actually have to
That's
wait
right.
until you pass them
That's right.
and move. But, and they were all single file. They were not 2 and 3 wide, or, on the road. They were single file, but you still can't just drive by them on that side of the road.
And they can't get off because there's
They
no
can't
shoulder.
get off, it's rough there.
That's right.
Yeah, and when you get pushed to the edge, that's where it's
It
Right.
gets
dangerous.
Yes.
That's right.
scary, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank,
That's all
thank-
I'll let
thank
you
you.
Well, thank you. And I'm hoping that our Pasco County Development Group works with the MPO. I'm assuming they do, and I'm assuming they run projects past our MPO. I don't know that, though.
Yeah, we communicate with the engineering department regularly and attend their production meetings, which are virtual.
Okay, very good. Okay, and are you going to give the CAC report?
Well, we have
Carl?
a
Oh,
TAC
I'm
is
sorry.
not, the chair from TAC is not able, but I will keep this incredibly short.
Okay.
They have the same agenda that you are viewing today. We had a lot of discussion about the safety performance measures. The Adair Road roundabout was presented, and Kurt from Go Pasco reminded us to make sure that any sort of a roundabout, make sure a 35-foot bus can go through there, because it does not have the ground clearance to do a mountable curb if it's too high, unlike a semi-truck. And then we had a few member updates about development that's occurring across the region. Moving over to Citizens Advisory Committee, again, they had the same agenda that you're enjoying today. They, by the way, both have new chairs because it is election season. So for the CAC, we have Sandy Graves as the chair. Over at the TAC, it is Cynthia Spidell. So with CAC, again, similar conversations. We did also, though, have a long talk about different facilities out there that are in need of attention that were brought up by the members. And so we've got those noted, and we'll be working with our partners. So in a nutshell, that's a summary of the two committees.
All right, do we have any questions for Carl? Okay, thank you. And we'll roll right into the.
I do have a question.
Okay. Commissioner
So,
Starkey.
and this is something I've talked with staff, not MPO staff, but other staff before. Maybe I've talked to Tina about it. And the importance of what we were talking about with the zoning overlays along trails. And I don't know if I've seen any action moving forward on the idea. And the idea is to incentivize, commercial retail development along a trail so that you get little mom and pops, or whatever, coffee stand, food truck, something along the trail that's an amenity. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if I've ever seen one in the country, but I just think we should have those zones along the side of our trails to encourage that kind of use along the trail. And I don't know if that's something MPO would need to discuss with the county or how to move it forward, but I really think we want to see that kind of concept moving forward. I mentioned it at a meeting, and I don't think it was in this meeting, but we had, I think it was a multifamily project coming in Land O'Lakes maybe, or maybe it was going to be on the Orange Belt, that was going to be bordering up to the Orange Belt Trail, and we said to the developer, hey, if you consider saving a little piece of your property in the back along that trail, you can have an opportunity for someone to have a little business there. Think of that in your site plan when you're going through, your layout design. And so I think we need to be pushing that to that creative way of thinking to our developers, and I just want to make that statement.
Just to add something to that, I would think those, for a little business and looking at the zoning, it would have to be near an intersection or something, because I don't think a business would be able to survive just on walkers or bikers, because there wouldn't be enough business for them. They wouldn't be able to, make a living out there like that. But if it was close to an area that's close to the roadway or something, and it could be connected, then I think that'd be a good thing to have.
That depends on what's
Yeah.
around it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and I think the first logical step would be the food truck idea, because you don't
Right.
need water or sewer for that, so maybe
A
that's.
hot dog stand.
Right, right, so,
lemonade
but I
cart.
imagine the current zoning does not allow for anything like that,
Right,
so.
yeah.
So it is, I think that's interesting, very interesting. And I don't know if the MPO takes it up, but I think we should start seeing what we can do about it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything else for Carl on the TA, or the CHC? Okay.
Well, to take that thought
You
even
only have one
further,
shot. No.
as we, this is my sickness. As we develop trails, where possible, we should also have those little pockets
I
of
think you're right.
opportunity, maybe in our right-of-way, where we can give a concession.
Mhm.
So, I thought.
Right, good point, very good point. Okay, we have 5 action items today, and they will be roll call vote on all of them, I believe. And the first one we have is the TIP program. So, I have trouble with these agendas. Who's going to do that tonight? Are you going to do that one?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Good morning. I'm here to present to you the TIP-SIP amendment for US 98 301 corridors. If you remember earlier last year, I came to you and I asked for a LRTP amendment to go into the cost feasible plan for the purple and blue group, as you see before you. Subsequently thereafter, we came to you in December MPO board meeting and November committee meetings and asked for a TIP amendment to align with the STIP, the state TIP, in order for us to receive funding to move forward with the projects. Currently, we are asking for another TIP amendment to ensure funding is placed in the correct categories for the US 98 301 Dade City bypass. And earlier in the year, we had came to you and also talked about the list of priority projects with this current red and orange group right here. This is currently on our list of priority projects, and it's in our TIP for funding. Again, in question, the current project right here with a little bit closer view, we have the US 301, US 98 Clinton Avenue alignment. And then currently, we're doing the Dade City bypass and asking for the TIP amendment. So I just wanted to come before the board to ask you to review and approve the current TIP amendment.
Move approval.
Wait,
Wait,
no, I
we
have
have
a
a hand.
question. I'm looking at your preferred typical roadway section,
Yes.
and I just want to remind all the commissioners that were up in Tallahassee recently, and you're driving on Capitol Circle around Tallahassee, and how they did their trails with landscaping and a little bit of weaving, and this is like, we have nothing here. I mean, can you put any landscaping alongside that? that
We would
trail?
have to get with FDOT to look and review that request. Jensen Hackett's here from DOT. He can come up
Because I
and
think the
discuss.
Capitol Circle is a state road around Tallahassee. So, just, it's frustrating, keep saying this. Yeah,
Morning, Jensen Hackett, DOT. I actually lived in Tallahassee for a few years.
do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I sure do, and I remember we discussed back in October
Yeah.
this. We're still looking for that as part of these. Obviously, we haven't gone through design yet, but once we do that, we can figure out if there's going to be landscaping as part of the trail situation there. I'll go ahead and talk to our PM today when I get back to the office and figure out what exactly they're kind of looking at as part of this.
Thank you, because in Florida, it's hot, and people want some shade, otherwise it's, an uncreative engineer's idea. Who doesn't use a trail? That's my frustration.
Definitely heard, Commissioner.
All right, thank you.
And engineers do like straight lines, don't
They
they?
do, they're so,
Yes.
come on.
Very good.
Can I move approval now?
Okay, yeah. Any further discussion on this item? This is an action item. We have a motion from Commissioner Oakley, a second from Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? The roll call vote.
Mayor Camille Hernandez,
Aye.
Todd McClary,
Aye.
Councilman Matt Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey,
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano,
Aye.
Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye. Thank you. That's good stuff for us, helping move these projects forward. All right, the next action item is the UPWUP. UPWUP, is that how you say that? UPWUP, is that right?
UPWP. Hi, I'm Lori Shattiger with the Pasco MPO. I'm the accountant. I'm here for you guys' approval on the deobligation on the PL.
Okay. And as I understand it, this is the one where we moving money to another year, correct?
Yes, so
Okay.
if I don't deobligate it now, we won't be able to use it until the second year of our
Move to
new PL.
The deobligation sounds bad, but it's not in this case.
No, it's not. It's good. It's saving money. They can't take it if I move it.
Very good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion from Commissioner Oakley, second from Commissioner Starkey. We have a roll call vote?
Yeah, that backwards, but that's
Oh,
okay. We
the
don't
motion, was a motion from?
From me.
I'm sorry about that. So just reverse that. Okay.
Mayor Camille Hernandez,
Aye.
Todd McClary,
Aye.
Councilman Matt Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore, Commissioner Catherine Starkey,
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano,
Aye.
Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. All right, our next item is, who's going to present this one, Carl? Okay, very good. Tina? I have trouble because I have an agenda and a script, and I have to look back and forth, so, and I'm a little ADD, so go ahead, Miss Tina.
So Tina Russo, Active Transportation Planner for Pasco MPO. So this is the second year I've got to present this report. It's our safety performance measures, which is a small piece of our report and our tip as well. But this kind of gives you a snapshot of the last 5 years of our fatalities and serious injuries. So we're going to kind of discuss that. John is one of our new planners who helped me tremendously with the stats and these graphs as we figured out the best way to present this information to you. First off, it's something very dear to my heart as an active transportation planner. Again, it's not about numbers, it's about people. Next, oh, I got the button. So the most important thing is we mention numbers, it's a story. It's people's lives, not only the fatalities, and I was thinking about this at 3 o'clock this morning. It's not only about the fatalities, it's the serious injuries that people incur and live with those injuries for their whole life. So it's about numbers, but it's about behind those numbers, the story. This picture here is the fatality that happened at 52 just west of Suncoast back in December. There was one fatality at that location. Just a horrific crash, and we call them crashes. We don't call them accidents. But there was a fatality there, but I'm sure there was several people affected by that crash that day. So first off, last year was the first time I presented you these numbers and the adoption of what our targets are going to be. Since then, in this past year, we've added some staff, we've done some things. So the good news is we're kind of moving in the right direction for the first time. So we did our Vision Zero, and we will always support Vision Zero as our vision, okay? Tough number, 0, but that's what we're going to work towards, all right? So we've done 2 phases of Vision Zero, and we'll probably continue that for years to come on how best to get those numbers down. But Vision Zero is what we support. It's what FHAW supports as well, and we'll move forward with that. Those aren't our target numbers, but that is our support is towards that number. We also did our very first active transportation plan that was really collecting data and getting information. We talked a lot about development and different multi-use paths, shoulders, and all those things. That first phase of our active transportation plan was giving an inventory of that data to see what we have so we can move forward. So this is requirement for federal funding. It doesn't mean they're going to take our money away based on these numbers, but it is a requirement that we report these numbers to you and we actually adopt a number as we move forward. So one of those there's 5 things that we have to show you and report to you. The number of fatalities. We have to also show the rate of fatalities per 100 million miles vehicle travel. The number of cars, the number of miles traveled are going to dictate how those fatalities happen. If you have more more people driving, you're going to have a higher number of fatalities and injuries. So we also look at the number of serious injuries as well. And then we also do the rate of serious injuries per miles. And then we also, the one I kind of near and dear is that non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries also. The numbers, we get into really in-depth. Johnny and I spend way too much time looking at these crashes and looking at these numbers every day. Just a reminder, these numbers are based on a 5-year trend. So I throw up the bad first. So our annual fatalities, and this was for 2020, or we work a year behind, unfortunately, even though we look at actually live data almost daily. But up to 2020, we had 107 fatalities in 2020. Notice what happened in 19 and 18. We went up, okay? We went from 99 to 107. That's something we definitely don't want to see. We had some different things happen those couple of years as well, though. So those little red dots on that map are those fatalities. Kind of small, but if you notice something, they're all over the place. There is not a specific area, unless you look at 19, that corridor, they're all over the place. So that's a big part of this. If we could find one intersection that was the worst and work on it, we could do that. But it's a general behavior that's going on here that's happening. So our annual fatalities, and this came from the TAC. This just got put in this past week. So our annual fatalities in 2021, the good news, we went down 1. And considering our miles traveled went up, that's a good sign for us that we're trending at least in another direction. So we went from 107 to 106. This report does not reflect that, but the TAC wanted us to share that good news to you that we went down. Again, one life is one life, folks. So one of the things that we've constantly heard since COVID is those vehicle miles traveled dropped during that COVID trend. We also heard that those miles traveled were not as great a decrease as Hillsborough and Pinellas. So Johnny, crunch those numbers for me. You can see that Pasco did not have the decline in miles traveled during COVID. Hillsborough had a great decline and Pinellas had a decline, but we had more folks still on the road during COVID. That makes a big difference when we talk about crashes. So how are our targets developed? They're very detailed by FHAW and the state how we come up with these numbers, okay? It's based on all those things I just talked about. It's a 5-year trend. It's based on miles traveled, but the 5-year kind of gives us a trend. If we picked one year, especially if it was 2020, those numbers are going to be skewed. So everything we do is in that 5-year trend so we can see what's really happening. These don't change overnight. It takes a long time to get those numbers to turn in a different direction. So that's where that 5-year trend number that we're going to look at really reflects what's going on. So this is the number and rate of fatalities on that 5-year period. This is that snapshot that gives you an idea of what's really, really going on, because you get those anomalies in that period, but this kind of tells us what's happening with our fatalities based on that 5-year trend and based on those miles traveled. So unfortunately, what we don't like to see is that graph going up. That means we're still edging up with killing folks on our roads, okay? That's what we don't want to see. But we're also growing increasingly day to day. So we have this trend line with people coming in, more people driving cars, more people on the road, and because of that, it's that law of percentages. So our average annual fatality rate, that goes back to the one too many, folks. It's creeping all through. The good news is, like I said, even though we don't see it here, last year we had a little bit of a dip and our mileage was starting to come back. So we have that 99, about 100 people a year is the average, but we're making that creep of 1 or 2 people per year on our roads dying. Again, one person too many. So good news, our serious injuries in that 5-year period, you can see they're starting to go down a little bit. We talked about this last year. So what's happening is, and from what we've learned, is our automobiles are becoming safer to drive. We get airbags, we get in a lot of different things that help save us from those injuries. Believe it or not, some of our roundabouts will help with this too. If we have those lower speeds and roundabouts, we all know that intersections can be very deadly, but roundabouts increase or decrease our speed, so there's slower speed impacts. So some of those things are what's showing up here. The good news is that some of those injuries are going down. And then now, here we go. So number of pedestrian bicycle fatalities, they've always just lumped these into bike ped, which is really not fair. But that has gradually gone up. So 2020, we had that increase. Last year, we had a decrease in bikes, but our pedestrians keep getting killed, folks, off the chart. And we saw a noticeable increase during COVID because we think more people, because of bus service and COVID, ended up being stuck walking more and more. So there was a definitely increase in pedestrians killed in 2020. But those are gradually going up, especially our PED, our cyclists coming down. And most of our cycling behavior, where there's a fatality, especially on 19, they're doing the behavior of a pedestrian where they're darting out across 19 as well. So what is recommended, and this is a recommendation that we would like to adopt. Unfortunately, that trend has gone up. We went from 92.2 last year to 99.8. So these are 19 and 20. So we're a year behind, which makes this really hard because we know what happened last year already. But we want to adopt trying to stay even with these numbers. The good news is we know we kind of went down already. But we want to recommend that 99.8. We kind of did this last year. So also what's going to happen is hopefully now that we have leadership and we have some MPO team and we're developing those partnerships with our traffic ops, with our FDOT, we're part of the Pasco Community Traffic Safety Team. We're building those partnerships where we can start really working on a realistic number on getting these things down. Again, we support Vision Zero. That's our ultimate goal, but that's our recommendation for this right now. And then I'm just going to show you how we're going to do this and how we're going to do it more and more each year. So this is a real small snapshot. When you guys vote on our tip in a couple of months and it goes to public comment, you will get a detailed report of all the different projects, plans, and partnerships that we do to get these numbers down, but this is a very, very small snapshot of that. So safety fund projects, in the last year, thanks to DOT and project management services and our engineering folks, we're starting to implement some safety treatments with our resurfacing project. Example is Blanton Road. When they do the resurfacing, we're hoping to maybe put some kind of safety edge on that roadway, which will help with lane departures and rollovers. So another one is lighting. Lighting's become a huge success in Pasco County as far as 19 and our intersections. We might not be able to illuminate the whole road, but we all know that intersections are our most dangerous locations, so just lighting the intersection is a big plus. Safety improvements on resurfacing I talked about. We're definitely working on sidewalks and multi-use paths, getting people away from the roadway. And then we're starting to do safety audits with FDOT, State Road 54 in Zephyr Hills. We're working on DOT with their resurfacing projects, trying to implementing different safety techniques when they do that resurfacing project, whether it be mid-block crossings, lighting, cleaning out the medians, all those different things. And we actually physically went out with FDOT, Dr. Stovall was part of that group, went out and looked what was going on and what some treatments and improvements that we can do with that FDOT resurfacing project. Some of the other things that we're doing, the leading pedestrian intervals, traffic ops. VNCAP's done a tremendous job in the last year. I think we've implemented about 150 of the 300 signal boxes that have the pedestrian interval timing. And what happens is when that person hits that signal button, instead of it automatically turning green, it gives them 3 to 5 seconds for that pedestrian to step out into the crosswalk. And then by law, one thing is you see them there, but another thing is that you're going to yield to them because you see them. So they give us that 3 to 5 seconds. What's really nice about that is several boxes that were in the county needed to be upgraded to put that system in, and that's what's been happening in the past year. Again, just one small snapshot. And another one is speed feedback signs that safety office through DOT started to implement. That's where you get to see your speed, but we also can use Bluetooth technology and other technology to know where we have speeding problems. So let us know what the speed is on that road so we can start implementing an enforcement. And I think that's the biggest thing. 5 E's is what's going to make the difference for us to get these numbers down. And it's not just engineering. It's got to be the education, engineering, enforcement environment. So they all have to work together to make a difference. And then one of the big things is that we brought to you this year is we're starting to prioritize our projects with those safety items in mind. FDOT just launched a new strategic safety plan in the past year that addresses lane departure, speeding, aggressive driver, vulnerable users. So that is now part of us ranking our projects because those are those that need to be done for us to get these numbers down. So, and then the last slide, this is just one of many projects that has been done. This is an FDOT project, the money that they put in to lighting up 19 to make it safer. So this is an action item. I'm just going to bring it back to this. I'm sure we have a couple of questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Moore. Thank you, Tina, too.
I brought this up to my fellow commissioners at I think it wasn't last meeting, it was the meeting prior to that. And around in the Wesley Chapel area, especially on 54 and 56, we're seeing an increase in crashes. Unfortunately, fatal crashes as well. There was one recently where there was 2 students that were racing, and there was 2 fatalities because of that. One of the students left the scene as well. But this is more and more common. I hear it where I live. I hear them racing in the middle of the nights. So this is something I would love to get FDOT involved, and I have brought this up. I drive to Tampa typically 1 to 2 days a week, sometimes in the mornings, and I'm seeing the Florida Highway Patrol out there every time. Last Monday, I went to Hillsborough County, and they were out there in masses, pulling people left and right. I'm not seeing them ever on the state roads in Pasco County, e.g. 54, 56, 52, 41. We just had a fatality on 41 last week as well. Now, we know that not every, quote, crash is caused by speeding or whatever it may be. We know there's different things, but a lot of that's going on. And it's I'm getting a lot of emails from constituents, again, around the Wesley Chapel area because of this. I would love to, and if we can work with FDOT, and I would love, and Andy, my legislative aide's right there, set up a meeting with FHP to see what we can do to pull them off 75. You answer this question for me. Do you feel, or do you think that you have a better chance of having a crash on a road, like a congested road, like a 54, 56, with multiple turns and traffic signals versus on a straight 75 or 275? Do you think your odds are higher
So
when
let
you're
me
dealing with that? Yeah.
Let me address the FHP situation, because part of the community traffic safety team, the Pasco, which is FDOT law enforcement, FHP knows that's one of the problems, but right now, they go crash to crash to crash.
No, I understand.
Okay.
Well, here's what I don't want to hear today. Not from
Okay.
you, but I don't want to hear about going from crash to crash. I know that.
Okay.
But I do see FHP out every time, every single time I go on 75 or 275. They are lined up and down in Pasco County and northern Hillsborough County. Every time. It doesn't fail. It doesn't fail. I'm a slow driver, but I make sure I watch my speed. I mean, seriously, Annie knows this. I'm a slow driver. Oakley knows it too. They always tell me to speed. I'm too slow. Speed up more. You're going too slow. But I'm very careful. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not traveling that they're not out there. How can we communicate with them to go, listen, you're going to get trust me, you'll get your tickets if you go on 41 and 54 and 56. Heck, your numbers are going to go up through the roof because the amount of people that are speeding on those roads. You heard Mr. Park talk about a crash, on an Aaron Cutoff recently as well. That's not a state road, but 52 does come by there. And if we could snag some of those people on 52 as well, maybe that'll put some sense into people. But we need to, I feel, in conjunction with DOT and FHP, let's get them off. Let's get them off. Let's get them off 75 and 275. Come on State Road 56. Come on State Road 54 to do their traffic enforcement. Now, I'm talking about crashes. I'm talking about traffic enforcement. And let me just continue on for a second. What can we do? You talk about education. So what can we do as a team to get in to the high schools, for example? How can we educate these students? How can we educate their parents? Because what it comes down to, this accident that happened, or the crash that happened recently, fatal crash, besides those kids' lives being ruined, and the people and the families' lives that are ruined, it's also those kids' parents' lives are ruined. Because imagine the civil suits that are coming their way, right? Probably on no fault of those parents, because these kids wanted to go out and race. But it's happening every single day after school in those areas. In the nighttime. Heck, I hear it at 2 or 3 in the morning.
So addressing two of those.
Yeah.
First one is, as far as the enforcement that is done with FHP on 75, we'll meet with our lieutenant, who is the troop for this area, and have that discussion with her.
Put her in touch with Andy, and so I want to have a meeting as well.
And
Well,
we'll do that
let me,
through-
I got to jump in here.
Okay.
So I had a meeting with the sheriff yesterday with the administrator. This was one of the topics we brought up, and also with crash reporting and FHP. And then subsequently, I had a meeting with Secretary Gwynn, who is actually already putting together this meeting. And I learned a few things, but I just wanted you to know we do have that meeting happening. And what I learned yesterday was that the FHP who are on the highways are different FHP employees that are in the county. But we do things a little differently here in Pasco County than any other county. And so that discussion has been started. And so you're right on target because that's in motion. And I want to say, I also hear the speeding on Strawberry, and we've had people come in. I can hear it across the water from my house in Gulf Harbors, and it's at any time of day and night. I'd love to see that. I'd love us to be able to slow that down somehow.
Yeah,
But good point, and those things are.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
get
it's
you that
Chair
information,
Starkey's here,
though.
you hear it, and it's becoming more and more common. This trend happened when I was in high school, of kids racing, and it seemed to go away for a while. I had a dear friend that hit a telephone pole and got killed in high school because of this exact same thing. But now it's more and more common with these cars and the souped-up cars and the mufflers. Yeah, the motorcycles too, and the mufflers and things. But it's getting really, really, really bad. And again, these are the state roads that are under DOT, under FHP.
I will bring back that troop information, which troop and who, that FHP, and get with DOT, mainly our safety
Yeah,
office,
you
because that's
start-
where we're working.
Listen, you start pushing tickets out.
Yep, we know that.
Especially to I'm just being honest, and it's not all high school kids, we know it's adults too. But I'm using this as an example because this is a common occurrence. You start hitting them and then mom and dad take that car away because they can't afford the car insurance anymore, word's gonna spread, right? Word's gonna spread.
And addressing the teen education program.
Yeah, how can we get
Qatar-
to high schools?
So USF Qatar has a teen education program, and they're in a couple of high schools in Pasco, but this may be where you help us. We've had a really hard time, they have had a really hard time getting into the high schools here.
Oh, I will guarantee you there will not be a problem hearing the outrage from the parents, especially at Wiregrass High School and Wesley Chapel.
So we'll
I
take
hear it all the
advantage
time.
of that with our USF folks that does that program and kind of go from there.
All right, thank you.
And thank you. Do we have an idea of how many FHP officers are in our county compared to other counties? And,
So from what I know, and I can bring back detailed information, and I might be able to bring back the lieutenant, and there is a new captain of the troop for this area, and it's not just Pasco County, they're in Hernando partially too. Suncoast has a separate troop, and I believe 75 Interstate has a separate troop. Jensen, right? But we'll get into that. I know that this FHP, because I rode with them in December, is very, very shorthanded. And the poor trooper that I was with for the day, and I'm gonna ride with him hopefully again, we went from crash to crash, doing short forms, from one end of the county to the other. So, we could not do any kind of enforcement at that time because we're going from crash to crash. So,
and I have seen the state troopers more along 54 lately, but I remember one night just from Wesley Chapel to Little Road, there was about 6 Pasco Sheriff officers on that road. So, Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
So DOT and the safety office is doing a very intense enforcement on 54. They've been doing it since December. They have the speed back signs that they're on the side of the road that you've seen, that $160 fine, and there's been quite a bit. They've been doing geofencing, and I can have them come to you and tell you about geofencing, which means you get that message about slow down and all those things. So they've been doing that on 54. They did Courtney Campbell first. They're doing it on 54. And again, they've been doing that since December. They've done several sting operations where they get out as many officers as they can on a Friday night and just write up tickets. They had, I believe, back in December, in 2 hours, they had over 40 citations, and they only wrote them for 20 over the speed limit. I can get those true numbers back to you guys.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And Chair Starkey made a good point to me a second ago, and then Andy sent me a message as well. Last time FHP was here, they had talked about us, helping to, supporting them when it comes to legislation to help increase their budget.
Okay.
And Chair Starkey mentioned that there is something, there is some legislation to help increase their budget. But I think we'd all be on board. I'd love to make a motion that we send a letter from the chair on behalf of the MPO board to our legislative delegation as well as FHP as well. FHP, does that fall under Patronus or does that just fall under the governor? Do we know? is it fire that, or maybe it's just fire that falls under patrolness?
I believe it's, FHP is under, the governor.
Okay.
Fire.
Maybe we could write a kind letter of support, what we're seeing here and how we would be, we're very supportive because, we think about government and what is really government here for. That's why when we came in as a body here, we increased the sheriff's budget so he and his team could obviously do a better job of protecting us and the citizens. Same time, one of the main things government's supposed to do is protect the people.
This would save lives if we had.
Yes. So,
FHP
I mean,
out
if
there.
that's really the main thing the
Yeah.
government should be doing, right?
I have a motion and a second for the letter being written.
Yeah.
And we'll have further discussion on this after the motion is voted on. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Yes, Commissioner Mariano has something.
Could you go back to the slide that showed the map of the annual fatalities with all the red dots?
So we have, that's 21.
Right there. That's good.
You want the 21 one?
Right there's perfect, actually.
Right there?
That double slide is good.
Left 19, yeah.
So look how back at 16 it goes up and then slides over. Now just go to the next slide again. And, one of the things is, the less people we have in 19, the better off we are. And I just want to get this map maybe fixed, corrected. I'm not sure exactly where Hicks Road shows itself right there. Does that go up and then is that East Road going across or is it the next one up? I'm trying to find out where Dent Nap is.
So I can, and again, this is just a snapshot of that. I can give you more details because we look at every single crash in detail by crash report. So if you want details, I can do that. Then again, this was just meant to be a snapshot of show you that they're kind of all over the place.
Right.
As well, so.
So what I'd like to do is to get that map blown up at one time and bring it back to us at a later
Okay.
date. Because right now we talk about, we just saw the connections from up in Trilby coming down from Wilton Manor. The connection, we were gonna connect the road that actually ran north-south that stopped is now gonna go all the way down. Hicks Road is another one where right now we have it on Denton Avenue. We got a paving assessment done that actually brought it down to Bolton. But from Bolton to New York Avenue, there's a gap.
Okay.
There's a development that may come in, and we've got the right-of-way already in place, but I'd like to get us to at least design the road, to put that money in. We can get the developer to hopefully build the road later on. But if I at least get the design money, there's a lot of fill that needs to be put in there. I can actually work on get some directives to
Safety question.
get some of our fill that we take in from place to place and get it put in there for down the road. So I'll bring that out later, but if you could get that map to me for the next meeting, we can actually look at that. Next question I had. With the crashes that are there, do you break down which ones may be panhandlers, maybe people crossing the road, or bikers?
You can,
Bicyclists.
so reading in crash reports,
Yeah, there you go.
you can, they'll tell the behavior if they're going across the road. It's really hard to say based on a crash report, and that's why I go out to know what the background is that caused that crash. Whether it's panhandling, that information's not in a crash report. It may show up, but it may not show up as well.
Can we get that feature added to a crash report?
That's state, but again, that's why I'm put in for another ride-along, because that's the information that we want to kind of see, those underlying things that aren't always in that crash report that happens. Especially certain areas, if there's something unusual engineering-wise, what we know about Seagrass, the road's a little higher, so your visibility's less. So crash report is mandated at the state level, so whatever's in it is in there. Again, riding along with HP lets you hear and see those other things that always don't make it in a crash report.
But if we could, let's work with the state on trying to get the data. Maybe we can put a letter together for that, because, a couple of years ago, we did have a few panhandlers that got
Yep.
run over. That causes an uprising. We had a big stop on it. The county commissioner's got an ordinance coming up at the next meeting that's gonna have a right-of-way ordinance provision in it where you can't do business in an intersection, which we see everywhere,
Definitely.
which is a detriment to the community visually, but also, let's say you're the driver and you happen to hit one of them guys. That's gonna change your life. But that data's gotta be collected.
Right.
To be implemented, and for future things that may happen, where the state can say, we're gonna protect these people, not only the people driving the car, but the people doing the transactions. We need to protect them as well.
And we can add, especially with our troops here, with the lieutenant and captain, that if we want that information, they can note it in the system as well. There's some things going on with different car types that are being noted as well, with autonomous vehicles that are being noted in reports because they want to track it. So that's something that can be tracked just for this troop. Jensen? Thank you, sir.
So Jensen Hackett again with DOT. I just wanted to kind of portray FDOT's stance on all of this. At both your CAC and your TAC meetings this previous week, we've had good 30 to an hour-long discussion on this, and all of those committee members are echoing essentially the same points that you guys are. I just wanted to pick up, I know that Commissioner Moore was talking about that crash that was over there by the Culvers. I'm actually over there as well. I've got family connections to Wiregrass Ranch High School, so I definitely know all about that one. That's my Culvers that I go to.
Okay.
So I'm definitely aware of all that. So I've been actually working on that in the past couple of weeks since that occurred to see if there's any kind of modifications that can be done in that area of 56. But in terms of the safety side of FDOT, we have a safety office here at District 7, and it is actually the only district office in the state for FDOT that has a safety office. We are the pilot program of this, and this is all that they do. They look at any crashes that we have on our system and see how we can not only do enforcement and education, but also they look into what actually led and occurred to whatever crash happened on our roadways. And try and alleviate some of that driver error. If it is bike or ped error, those type of things are what we really try to focus on as part of our safety office. And again, it's the only one in the state that does this. We do have an education campaign. I think within the past 3 months, we've gone to over 150 high schools in the Tampa Bay region. A lot of them have been geared toward Hillsborough, but I'm working with our safety office to see if those can be pushed into more schools in Pinellas, as well as Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus, to kind of get the education out. We do a lot of flyers, pamphlets, and those type of things as part of the safety office, and I actually just sent the MPO last week all of our information that's in our repertoire statewide of any brochures, flyers, those type of things that they can push to you all as well, so that you guys can help enforce some of that education as part of this as well. So I just want to make that
No, and I
plug for our
appreciate
safety
it,
office.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, so Andy will get with you. Let's work on something, you know, a couple of those high schools were having major problems, where we can go out together and push this really hard. Okay, that'd be
Sure
great.
thing, yeah.
I
And our
appreciate
safety
it.
office will go with you, and then we can
Yeah,
hold you.
that's, yeah, maybe we can do it as a team. That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Starkey first, and
Two things. One, I want to stay on that Culvers area, and I don't know if this got fixed. I haven't been back because I've complained about this twice, and I've had it happen to me twice. Coming out of that outlet mall on the west exit. I don't know if that has a name. If you're coming out of that home store and you're over there to the left,
Yes.
the lights don't line up with the lanes. And I have sat
Yeah,
there and I have watched other people like, am I supposed to go? Am I not supposed to
Turn
go?
emerges is-
Some turned, you go straight.
Yeah.
It has been so confusing, and I've called our staff twice. The first time they said they went out there and they didn't see what I was talking about. And to me, it's so obvious, and all the cars around me, because some people are going, they slam on the brakes because they're not sure. Very confusing. Yeah, I know I have, twice. So I don't know if that's been fixed. But then I want to ask you about lighting. And I don't know if it's in your report that we talk about lighting, but Starkey Boulevard with all the cycling and pedestrian and walkers at night, pitch black. And now we have people that are crossing over to go into their neighborhoods in total darkness in that road. So, and I had mentioned something to the administrator, but this is probably a good place to bring it up. And then I know we're getting ready to widen Trinity Boulevard, but Trinity Boulevard at night, no lights, pitch black. So those are our roads. How do we get lights on those roads?
So that would be through traffic ops as well, through VNCAP. So, but that's, that comes through the TAC. We'll mention that to him.
Okay.
Starkey and Trinity as well.
thank you, Commissioner Phipps.
Thank you. Speaking of lighting, that's where I was driving and I noticed we had a recent death on Ridge Road along near Tanglewood.
Okay.
And the lighting was so poor, I saw and tried to take a picture, and it was completely pitch black over there. So that was concerning to me. Also, I know they're going to be bringing back probably a presentation on the top intersections. Carl, sorry. And while looking at the top 10 intersections for bicyclists and pedestrians, 6 out of the 10 of those are on 19. So I was wondering, it breaks it down by pedestrians and bicyclists. And I was wondering do we know if those pedestrians were in the crosswalk or were they standing on the side of the road? Because we had that breakdown, maybe we can find out if they were panhandlers.
A lot of your pedestrians are in those mid-blocks because they don't want to be in the intersection. They're darting across that mid, and that's why DOT is actually putting a mid-block at Green Key, one of those areas that's lit up there, so to help kind of remedy those dart outs, because they don't want to go down to that intersection and push the button and wait, so they're darting across. So in Hillsborough, they've put several mid-blocks in, and we're starting to do that on 19 and some other areas in the county as well.
And I brought it up to staff at one point, is if we can get statistics on if the bus stops were closer to the intersections, would they be more likely to go to the intersection? Or, because I've seen another fatality when crossing Little Road, because
Right.
they were jumping where the bus stopped.
Kurt's gonna do a route study that maybe can help us with some of those things as well. But yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios, and Jen's gonna help because again, 19's a state road, but maybe moving the bus stop off of 19 at a different location because again, they're darting across back and forth that gets that bus sometimes as well.
That was on Little, and the other one, it was the very next day, I saw a lady in a motorized or wheelchair that got off the bus and went right off the bus stop, went right across 4 lanes of traffic on on Regency to get to the other side, Rowan Road. So it was
Actually, Ridge is one of our higher crash areas between Little and 19 as well. Yeah, there's some.
Sure, I mean, unfortunately, you can add one more, because right now, we just had a teacher that was hit at Anclote High School. Yeah, stuck in her vehicle.
She's I just checked, she's in very serious condition.
Yeah,
So she's
terrible.
maybe not critical, hopefully.
Councilman Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. In the city of Newport Richey, we've had issues with pedestrians crossing. We've had, I think, 4 people killed in the last 5 years, and we just found out that FDOT is going to put an intersection there at Green Key Road. Maybe you know more about that. I'm assuming you were tracking these things, and maybe that's how that come about, but.
Yeah, so US 19 actually is our #1 hotspot in District 7. So in the 5-county region of Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, it's our #1. So that was one of the reasons why our safety team was created. And this is exactly what they're looking at. A lot of your land uses along 19 are a lot of older land uses that have been, put in since the 1970s and 80s and those type of things. And so it's just the conditions around and surrounding the land use on 19 doesn't really fit with US 19 in that corridor. And that goes back to kind of Tina's point of what we are seeing is a lot of those kind of dart across moves. And in certain parts of US 19, it's 6 lanes. Some parts are 8 lanes with, you've got turn lanes mixed in there. So you're really talking about 10 to 12 actual vehicular lanes plus a median. And so.
And a way overabundance of cut-ins to businesses. And I've actually had some businesses go away that wanted to come in because they wanted to get another cut-in. And we just wouldn't let them. And they said, well, we can't, we need to have 3. So well, this isn't a place for you then. So.
And that's kind of where you mesh together your land uses with your transportation network to make sure it's, usable for all modes of travel. And so that's kind of one of those things that we were looking at in terms of that specific intersection to create that one, because there was a high instance of a lot of those people running across the road because the nearest intersections were, a half mile to the south, a mile to the north, and you don't really have a lot of people, June, July, August here, you're not going to have them walk all the way up to the next intersection to then cross to come all the way back. And they're seeing what is that simplest route to get across the street. And so that's a lot of the work that we're doing. Back in 2019, we improved, I want to say it was 6 intersections along 19. That was a tip amendment that you all approved. That was to enhance that, so we enhanced it with the LED lighting retrofits. We widened the crosswalks, did median curb cuts for refuse just in case that they didn't have enough time to go from one side of the roadway to the other. Obviously, we don't want to see a lot of pedestrians, culminating in the medians, but just in case they don't have enough time to get all the way across the roadway, there is that refuge in the median. So those are some of the things that we're doing, but a lot of what we're doing now is those type of mid-blocks to make sure that pedestrians do have a lot of access and bicyclists to cross roadways like US 19. We used to do a lot of that with the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are those yellow flashing lights that you see at a lot of lower speed pedestrian crossings. What the state is using now is a Hawk, which is it's a hybrid beacon that's between the rapid flashing beacons and a full traffic signal. It actually flashes red so that cars get the signal to actually stop when there are pedestrians in the crosswalk. And so it's just like a regular signal with a stop bar and all of that. So we're using those. Some examples that we've used are down on Bush Boulevard in Hillsborough County. We've got about 6 of them up there, and they've worked really well to stop vehicular traffic when there are pedestrians crossing. So some of those type of treatments is what we're looking at for US 19 to really kind of get that across to allow for the bike and ped movements along with vehicular movements along that corridor. So all of that we're working on, and a lot of kind of new technologies, new innovative things are coming out safety-wise, not only with lighting and enforcement, but a lot of those kind of treatments that we can do to really safely move all users of the transportation system.
Well, and I want to say, Tina, I thank you for your passion for this, because I can tell it is a passion for you. And Jensen, thank you. And I have to say about Bush Boulevard, those do work. I mean, I think they've worked well there. So if we could do anything on 19 where it seems like we have a lot of pedestrian, and it's going to be very difficult to keep people from running across there. I mean, honestly, it is. But if we give them an option, maybe they're less likely, When you're going across there and the cars are running 60 miles an hour, it takes a long time to run across 4 lanes of traffic. So, yeah, and I've seen some poor, even in Zephyr Hills there, I see some poor people that can't get around real good for the light cycle, they can't even get across. So it's, anytime we see something like that, I think we need to make Tina aware of it, or whoever, and let them know that we see these issues.
Yeah.
But it's something, it's going to be a struggle. And it's great to think zero, that's the ultimate goal, but we just need to do what we can to mitigate everything. Any other questions for Tina? Okay, we do have this is an action item, and it's the approval of the 2022 safety performance target.
Second.
Have a motion from Commissioner Starkey and a second from either Commissioner Fitz or Commissioner Moore. I don't know. I'll give it to Commissioner Fitz. And I'm sorry if I call you Fitz, is that okay? Fitzpatrick doesn't roll off the tongue as well. So, okay, we have a roll call vote.
Mayor Camille Hernandez.
Aye.
Todd McClary.
Aye.
Matt Murphy.
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore. Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Aye.
Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank
All
you,
right. Very
guys.
good discussion again, Tina. Thank you.
Thank you.
For all the work on, and also thank you for the data, because without that, we
Yes.
wouldn't have a report. All right, the action item number 5, I think, right? No. 6? 5? All right, 5, okay. Carl,
Yes, please. So the next item before you is our project prioritization methodology. This is something that's been brought before you at several previous meetings to work our way through how we would score projects and have a quantifiable ranking system. This is something we do in preparation for building our list of project priorities, which we are required to submit to Florida DOT annually. The purpose of this is to have a system or methodology that will then have consistency to that list, that year after year, our top priorities remain at the top, and give Florida DOT confidence in their ability to fund our projects, that they will remain at that high ranking on our list. This methodology we've talked through before, so I won't bore you with the details of that. It's in your package. But I am seeking today your approval of the methodology And then we will be bringing to you at the next meeting, or perhaps even a bit later, the actual list for adoption that we will submit to Florida DOT. We have a few projects that were submitted during the call for projects that arrived shortly before this meeting that are not reflected on this list. But this list is all the projects we've had on previous LOPs and the way they scored with the methodology. I'd like to open it up to questions, please.
Any questions on this item? Yes, Commissioner Marion.
Carl, one of the things that I always talk about the methodology is sometimes you have a project that stays on the list for a long time. The projects will come in, get fresher, and then they jump up, such as the underpass at US 19, such as County Line Road, just sitting there that don't take their priorities and they get bumped back and forth. So once a project stays on the list, it's going to get more points and credit to stay on the list. The other thing that's difficult is on County Line Road, the funding part of it. Right now, the funding agreement was set up to be Hernando would pay 65%, and we would pay the 35%. It's also been times where they're going to try to get grant money from the feds where it may only be 20 or 25% of the project would be paid. That's a value that doesn't get reflected even with this report, unless you put an asterisk next to it or something to say, if it gets funded a lower priority, it would move way up. Like if you had County Line Road, you only had to spend $4 million on a $50 million road, would you think that'd be a pretty good thing to move right up? And I don't think the flexibility is still even in here for that. But is there a way to incorporate something like that? Because it is a current project that's going on, and they're trying to get federal money now. We've shown letters of support for it, but how could you look to make sure that we do give attention that when an opportunity presents itself to move it up on a situation like that?
So I'd like to break that into two parts, if I may, please. The first one is we did reflect in the scoring methodology projects that demonstrate a partnership between two units of government do get additional points. So then that was at your request at our last meeting. So County Line Road has been awarded those points. In the event, as you brought up about the funding opportunities, there are going to be different fund types out there that have attributes to them. And certain projects will do really well. And that's where we as staff want to go into this list, pick a project, and I'm going to talk later on here about the RAISE grants. The RAISE grants have certain attributes that they're looking for to score those projects at US DOT. We want to go down this list and pick the project that has the best odds of being funded and go after that money. And I want to do so aggressively because anytime we can pull money out of a discretionary or competitive grant from US DOT, that is bonus money. You bring up an excellent point that there would be a match required from us, say $4 million. We would have to find that, and that's where we would work as a team to say, okay, we have to have a commitment for that local match, that $4 million. So when we send in the application, US DOT has confidence that if they award us some money, we're going to follow through, we're going to do the project that they've awarded. So I think you raise an excellent point. We have to look at this and understand that we may go down to the 5th item on the list or the 15th item on the list because of the attributes of that project, but we can demonstrate to US DOT or whomever that awarding agency is, if the state would develop a similar program, that we have prioritized it, it is on our list, and that we're committed to it. So I agree with you, yes, we want to go after projects and money.
Well, and thank you. I think you've done a great job.
Actually,
The team.
this team here, I'm not taking the credit. I steered us in a direction, but they did the heavy lifting here.
Yes.
I have a question.
Commissioner Starkey. Yep.
I'm not sure how much I can talk about this. Sadly, some of it was in the paper when it wasn't supposed to be. But if there was a economic development project coming that required a road in front of it pretty quickly, how does that affect this? Because I don't want to lock ourselves into something, guys, that could preclude us from having something big come to the county.
So excellent question, thank you. So this project list is how we communicate to Florida DOT what it is we want to pursue long-term. Something comes up where it requires a quick reaction, we sit down with Florida DOT and ask, okay, what can we do? Or we sit down with perhaps our county administrator to talk about what funds are available through the county, or other entities to pursue an opportunity. This does not lock us into that or prohibit us. We can always take a project or get funding for a project that may not be the top item on there, and that could happen from one of two ways. One, Florida DOT may say, we've got about $10 million to spare, and the first $10 million project happens to be number 8. It gets funded. Or they may say, we have transportation alternatives funds, and that fits well with number 10 on the list. We can go straight to that. But it will not lock us out of pursuing economic development and attracting jobs, which I'm a big fan of. I think you've heard me say that. And we did put economic development in the scoring tool.
Okay, great. That's my
Just one
question.
thing.
Commissioner Moore?
Could you do me a favor? Maybe, it doesn't have to be the next meeting, but maybe at the next meeting, give the board a bit of an update on where we're at with Old Pasco. It's on the list, but it could be like a 5-minute update where we're at on funding, projections, et cetera, if you could. And I should have said this previous when we were doing the safety conversation, but if somebody, Mr. Park, raise your hand back there, right? Could somebody, after the meeting, get with Mr. Park, have a conversation with him about Aaron Cutoff, about the cut-through traffic, especially when it comes to the big rigs and the trucks and things that are cutting through there that are causing the damage on the shoulders and things like that. I know he has some other issues too that we don't agree on everything, but at the same time, maybe there's something that we can do to help calm that down, so a lot of those tractor trailers and things like that that are causing those issues aren't cutting in front or cutting through Aaron Cutoff. What they're doing, they're going from 52 to 41 versus going down, taking 52 and coming around and going to 41. But if you guys want to meet with them afterwards,
Yes.
or maybe set up a time. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Mariano?
Thank you. And Commissioner Starkey, to your point about funding when a special project comes up, we dropped down our mobility fees 2 or 3% the previous year, and that was to give us flexibility to go spend money on transportation in other areas. So that is a fund source we could actually tap into within a short period of time to go into to get it,
Great.
to give us flexibility.
Okay. And what I'm hearing is, while this is the criteria, and which, by the way, I've got to say, it was very good, very well put together by your team. I mean, I like the links where we can go see where the data you're using for each of the criteria. I think that's very, very well done. It doesn't prohibit us from looking at a project down the list for whatever reason, economic, or we have money, or it's a good return on the investment, and we can push it up the list if the funding's available. So, I mean, I think you've done a really good job on it.
Thank you.
And with that, if there's no more discussion, if
Move
there's
for
any,
approval.
have a motion and a second for approval. It's a roll call vote.
Mayor Camille Hernandez.
Aye.
Todd McLary.
Aye.
Councilman Matt Murphy.
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Aye.
Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. And could I just, who did the motion in the second?
Motion here, I don't know who did the second.
Motion was
Like 3, I think.
Yeah.
Commissioner Moore, and
Several of those on the
second
side.
was,
Mayor, raise your hand.
we'll say Mayor Hernandez on that one. Thank you, guys. All right, the next item Carl's going to handle, it's the election of the chairman and vice chair.
Yes, so for this, I'll take over so that we can have a neutral party, because I'm not eligible to be chair or vice chair. So our bylaws do require that at the first meeting of our calendar year, we hold these elections. So before we open up nominations, I do want to ask if anyone would like to make a statement, please.
I just have a question real quick. We've been doing, I think the tenure, we can do up to 2 years as chair. Is that what we decided before? Okay. Is this your, I can't keep up. Is this your first?
Fourth year.
Well,
Well,
I don't-
someone else was there.
No, I think I've been on 2 years now.
have you been on 2 now
I
as
think,
chair?
but I'm not sure.
Okay, well then, if we said 2, then, okay, I just want to check. I'm just making a statement. I personally, I like how we've been kind of doing things and allowing our representatives from the cities to be chair and vice chair. That's just me. And we're on so many boards and committees too, so it does make our lives a little bit easier. But there's already 5 of us. I like that.
Me
So
too.
I'll make a motion for Mayor Hernandez for chair.
Okay.
Can
Now,
I,
second?
can I,
Mayor Hernandez might want to make a statement.
Let's say, let
Yes,
me,
I'd like to make a statement. I thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity, but I will not be, this is my final term. I will not be
Oh.
filing for
Oh,
serving.
you and I are on the same page then. We're both retiring.
The farewell tour, as Commissioner
Okay.
Moore said.
And I
Oh,
apologize
okay,
if
well,
I-
thank you for that. I'll make a motion for Matt Murphy to be chair.
well, let me
She was vice chair, that was in the, kind of the way we go.
check for other statements before we go to motions, please, if it would be okay with
That's
everyone.
fine.
So-
I think we also are in agreement, but.
I would like to ask for a motion to be chair or vice chair, and it was depending on Mayor Camille, I didn't want to jump over anyone. The top 3 priorities I was really focusing on was Vision Zero with the safety and the trails and pedestrians to lower the accidents, fatalities, and major injuries. My second one was making sure the infrastructure is being developed along with the land use maps to make sure that our infrastructure is developed prior to future development and new development. And then my third was focusing on the landscape and aesthetics and promoting the adaptive highway, making sure our roadways are clean. So, thank you.
Well, appreciate all those things, but we have always had the cities be chair. It's just forever.
Well, I had spoken to previous commissioners, and they had mentioned that they have been chair of the MPO, so I would just like to throw it out there and put it out there.
No, is there, I can't remember if we do have a motion on the floor.
We did have a motion. and a
We do have,
second.
I'm sorry.
Councilor
like to
Murphy.
second
Before
I have a motion and a
she
second
spoke.
from Matt, and noting Commissioner Fitz's comments, and I hear you, that you'd like to be on there, and I understand that. And we do have to have a vice.
I'll make a
We have
motion for
Mike-
Christine to be vice, well, we have to vote on
And
the
can we have
motion.
Matt Murphy speak? Would you like to say anything?
I'd be fine with her if she wanted to be chair. I would take vice chair. That's all right in training. That's all right with everybody else.
You've been around here for a while.
You've
You're
been
good.
around enough.
Don't get out that easy.
I think it's
Don't get out that
I
easy.
think for the reasons that were stated, I
Yeah.
do like and I appreciate the fact that the board, I know you folks are on so many different committees and meetings.
I have
I
two.
do think it's very important that the cities, we are
Yeah.
kind of have it gives us an appreciation, and you are more than qualified and been around and
Yeah.
all of those things. So I think it's important that the cities, and I appreciate that the
Yeah.
cities do be
And-
It's
represented.
kind of been a precedent that's been set, that we set a long time ago, and we've all kind of been in agreement of the
Yeah.
Board of County Commissioners that we would allow the cities, because they're actually, in essence, they're underrepresented on this MPO board. So to allow them to be chair, it's gone well for all these years, and I just think we should stick with that. I think
And
Commissioner
to
Mariano wants
Matt's,
to say something.
yeah, well, I'm sorry. I jumped
Commissioner
in.
Mariano.
Okay, I'll jump in after.
And, years ago, it was kind of rotating, we'd have a city, the representative would step in, sometimes the county. I had been chair, probably my second year in. I frankly was gonna actually nominate Commissioner Starkey today. And I just want to say why. With the TMA group that we have, it is a vital part of what's going on in the county. Because I think of a bunch of different reasons of not getting strong presentation, leadership on that, it looks like we've lost an opportunity to get that CSX rail, which is gonna now put more pressure on the BRT. And I think the chair, whoever that person's gonna be, needs to be involved with the TMA, needs to go, take an active role in what's gonna happen regionally as well. So if you're not comfortable with that, and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with the two
No,
picks
I
anyway.
like the cities being chair, but I appreciate that very much. I think I'm just as effective as I am, whether I'm chair of this or not. But I will tell you, and you might remember, Matt came to our big
Yes, he did.
TMA. We asked everyone to
We
come,
went.
and Matt came to the big transportation meeting in Tampa. And that showed me his commitment to transportation
And
issues.
it's a critical thing coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And as far as,
It is.
I'm delighted to have a West Side City stepping up now.
Yeah.
Haven't had one since Jeff Starkey was here, so great to have him willing to step up and taking that step, so I'm comfortable with the
Commissioner
way.
Moore also came to that meeting, I want you to know. So we
Yeah.
we had good
That was a fun one.
representation. It was interesting, right? I told you.
She said she wanted to bring the big guns in that day, so I came in a stomping. Just kidding. Now, okay, so you're not sure, well,
Wait,
hold on a second,
did
I
you
might have
accept-
another solution. I might have another solution if he wants this,
Wait,
wait another year.
will
He
you
said he-
take it?
He said he wanted to,
Well,
well,
No, you don't want to
I've-
wait. You don't want
Can I,
let's do it.
Are you-
Mayor?
Would you accept the nomination as motion?
So,
Well, he might not, yeah. Let's let
Will the top side again?
Yeah, go
Can-
ahead.
We have a
Yeah,
motion and a second.
I just, with my time commitment on different things, it just
Yeah, I haven't-
starts to be a little thin, that's all
Okay.
my concern with that was.
Okay, so I have one more option, okay? So I just found out that you actually have another year. You thought you were on 2 years.
Have that recollection.
You do.
I thought so, because I think you stepped in for someone.
Yeah, because you stepped in.
Oh,
You
that's
stepped
right.
in.
That's right.
Okay, so
That's
what,
right.
okay, if you want to wait, well, I'll wait. So I'm going to nominate Lance Smith to be chair again.
so I have been more involved, I've been getting more involved, and I've been more involved, and I've been speaking with staff, and I did attend the AMPO convention last year, and I would like to attend again this year. I would just like to be more involved with transportation due to the concerns that I've listed on my top 3 priorities.
So a motion and a second for Lance
We have
Smith.
a
sir.
motion and second, and let's do a roll call vote since we don't know how this is going to
So
come
what
out.
is the,
Confused, where
motion-
are we?
the motion
So
and
we
a
up
second.
first Lance
On
to-
Lance.
Okay.
So you, so,
And then you, okay, I
He's
got
going to
it.
do vice.
so,
Okay.
Matt will do vice.
Mayor Camille Hernandez,
We're voting, just so I know, we're just voting on Lance at this
Yes.
point. Okay, aye.
Mayor Scott Tremblay, represented by Todd McLaury.
Aye.
Sorry. Councilman Matt Murphy.
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick.
aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Aye.
Chairman Lance Smith.
aye. Okay, thank you, and I appreciate the support. And in my way, we can all do our part. It doesn't have to be a chairperson's responsibility. I mean, we have the ability to attend these meetings regardless of our position on this board. So with that said, I'll let Carl go ahead and open up for.
Okay, and then I would like to open up the nomination, or first of all, for vice chair. Would anyone like to make a statement? And then I'll open up nominations, please.
Matt Murphy for vice. You'll give you a year to get ready.
Second?
Under discussion, I have a question.
Sure.
Are you okay if he can't go to things, that means you're going to go to things? Are you okay with that? Because we do need our representation at certain places. You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. But under discussion, I want to say something to Commissioner Fitzpatrick. We are allowed 3 people on the TMA, and we've only had 2.
Yeah, do it.
So if you want to join the TMA, we would love to have you, because we are allowed to have 3 votes. So that would be very good.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second for the vice chair.
Sorry, for the record, who made the motion?
Who did make the motion?
I did.
More, please.
I second,
And
or
the second.
I think there were 2 seconds there.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Mayor Camille Hernandez.
Aye.
Mayor Scott, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Todd McLaury.
Here for the day.
Councilman Matt Murphy.
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Aye.
And Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Okay.
And
Yes,
if I
Carl.
may, Commissioner Starkey, you had suggested the 3rd seat for the SCTPA for Commissioner Fitzpatrick. Would you like to make that in the form of a motion? We could just do that here.
Sure.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to put Commissioner Fitzpatrick as a member on the TAC.
The
representative.
Suncoast Transportation Planning
Okay,
Alliance.
Suncoast.
Yeah, whatever it's called. I can't.
Too many acronyms, right? Could we go ahead? We'll, good roll call vote on it. Thank you. You can't leave.
Mayor Camille Hernandez. Todd McLaury. Councilman Matt Murphy.
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Moore. Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Aye.
And Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. And now we're at the point where Kurt is going to come forward and give us our Go Pasco report.
We have a quick update on,
Oh, okay.
thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Oh, where's Commissioner Moore?
I did. I stopped him before he ran out. We told him. So just to loop everyone in, we have funding for Old Pasco Road.
Yeah.
This was one of my first assignments when I came to the MPO to complete the County Incentive Grant Program with project management, Debbie Bulldog. Right now, for fiscal year '23, it's expected to be in PD&E. So we are diligently working to get Old Pasco Road funded. It is a combination of county and the state working on Old Pasco Road. And then Tina has a brief update for you as well from project management.
So we attend those bi-weekly project management meetings to kind of keep up to date on all those projects, 107, 108 that the county is with. And along those lines, I actually sent in most of the development reviews for any of those developments along Old Pasco, all of them, and we've gotten really better about this in the last year. Look at any of those access issues that might occur with that development, including future MPODs, and sometimes that might be where we can address some of this overlay district with future trails as well.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I saw when we had at the county commission, we had a report from the Office of Economic Development. That report, they had Old Pasco Road listed on there as being funded from some of their economic development money from our penny. So I saw that on there. Yeah.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, Kurt, what you got for us today?
Not much today. Kurt Scheibel, Director of Go Pasco. I'm sorry to hear that you're leaving us, ma'am. I've enjoyed working with you, so
Same here.
all I can say is that, and I know Commissioner Moore is also leaving. The good news is that the study that I've been talking about for a while now, the contract has been completed and it's out for the signature for the awarded company. It should meet the board meeting on, don't quote me on the date, but I think it's March 8th is the next one, the first one in March. So it should be on there and you'll start hearing more about that. Once that's approved and moved forward, one of the big parts of this whole thing is public outreach to include.
Is this the microtransit contract?
No, ma'am, this is for the whole redo. Microtransit is an aspect of it, though.
Okay.
Along also with looking at how we might be able to do first mile, last mile, a whole bunch of things are inside there. So it will cover those options, and it's required to look at options where microtransit will work with inside the county. That was a key line in an ALI, basically in that group. But it has a whole bunch of there, because I can see options all over the county for that. We'll be expecting to see that for you all out there. Other than that, it's just my normal grant season and everything coming in, so I don't really have a lot of big updates for you, just getting things done down the road. So any questions for me overall?
Commissioner Starkey?
Yeah, yesterday I toured Pepin Academy with Tom Pepin and his daughter, and they brought up the is it paratransit?
Yeah, we do provide some paratransit
Yeah.
for those
So,
kiddos.
well, they said and I remember that we had to stop offering it to their students, but they mentioned that they have it in Hillsborough County. It's called Heart 2 or Heart Plus or something.
Yeah,
So-
Heart Plus is the paratransit service down there.
So their students in Hillsborough are able to have that opportunity. So I had thought that we couldn't do it because of some federal issue, but it appears that they are doing it. So I said that I would I would talk to you about that at this meeting today because it's greatly affected their population and their parents not being able to provide the paratransit. So if you could.
I can take a look at it, and just so you know, the federal law is that we're not allowed to do school bus service because they consider it double dipping. The DOE, Department of Education, takes care of the funding for that, and so they should have funding. If they're getting Department of Education funding, they should get that. So because we're not they're the school bus, we're just not a school bus system.
So
we
somehow
could
they're
I'm gonna
doing
ask-
it in Hillsborough.
I have
so.
a call with Hart later today, and
Great,
I'm gonna see if I
great.
could try and get there. If not, I will meet with the director of Hart next week, because we have a big FTA meeting next week, and I will be able to
That's
sit
what I
down
was hoping.
and talk to her.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Murphy, didn't you?
For the feasibility study for the microtransit?
Yes.
do we have a date as to when that'll be completed, or?
It's once the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners starts, the process will kick off. It's not a short process. I'm expecting 9 months. Now, that's in phases, but part of that will be looking at where microtransit can be utilized throughout the county. So that is part of the whole process. And it's not a minor process. As we well know, there are many manufacturing places going out in the county. Well, how can we serve them? Because if I can pull 10 people off the road, that's 10 cars going to that manufacturer, if they take our buses, I think that's a win. And so those type of things we're looking at along with that one. There's multiple requirements in there. But this type of study is pretty common throughout the nation. So I think we're going to move along in the right direction.
Thank you.
Sure, Mariana.
Thank you. You just made a comment there when you said double dipping, that kind of like threw me a little bit with transportation. And to me, if a student maybe has a long drive for a different class, maybe he's doing a culinary institute and he's got to go from a different place and there's no way to bus him back and forth, I think we should actually work with the schools to allow them, if we have an existing bus route, to let a student get on that bus, take it, so the parents don't have to drive all the way back and forth. Do we
If you
allow that?
call in, what I'm looking at is I can't have dedicated buses for it.
I know, I get that.
And so what we do is they call in just like I take a student to college or to high school. There are some that we do pick up. But Pasco County School District actually gets funding to transport people with disabilities and needs to be able to do that. There is funding available for that through the Department of Education.
They don't get it for charter schools.
That was going to
I'm
be
not
my next
familiar with that
question.
side of the
Yes,
the
they
place.
they're not allowed to do charter schools. That's why it's not double dipping, I guess.
Okay, because when I attended the Great American Teach-In, there were some students that did utilize that service that they had mentioned.
The only requirement I have is that they have to call in just like everybody else. That's the only requirement I have. They call in and do it, we get them doing. In the past, though, we had at one point dedicated buses that all they did was transport PEP in schools. That's not allowed. But if a person calls in and says, hey, I need a ride from here to here, they get that ride. And so I can't have somebody dedicated to it, but there is where they can be picked up and taken to where they need to go. If it's PEP at school, it's PEP at school. If it's a grocery store, it's a grocery store. Trip's a trip.
All right, so we've allowed, I think we made special exceptions for jurors to be able to ride the bus back and forth.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
We've made provisions where we could allow jurors to ride back and forth.
Yes, sir. It's very, very rare that that happens on that.
We've done it, I think, for veterans.
Veterans ride free.
Okay. So I think we should take a look at putting something together, and if you can set us up, or I can even just make the motion, I guess. But if we have a student that needs to go to a school that the school bus system does not provide for whatever the reasons, whether it's too far to go, et cetera, that we allow them to ride our bus system. If it means creating them a pass, I don't have to call them every week that they need to go get a pass, but through the school year, if they're going to be going to a designated school that's not served by the school board, that we allow them a free pass where they can actually make the transportation themselves.
The difference is what I think that's getting mixed up is the transit bus will pick up.
I'm not getting mixed up. I'm making a solid point on a separate issue that I'm picking up on.
We've tried that. When I was on the school board, we tried that.
They can still use the regular Go Pasco bus.
Correct.
They can utilize that.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is I don't have to have them have to pay to go use it, especially if they're going back and forth to school.
We have a lot of subsidiary programs that keep it inexpensive. Right now, it's most of them are using the Commission for Transportation funding that does have a copay, but we do have a couple that most of the free rides that we have are for older Americans through the Older Americans Act. If we would want to subsidize that amount, make it free for those folks, that would be we'd have to do a lot of research on how much more budget we would need for that, and moving forward from there.
Okay, I want to suggest that kids don't even have to pay anything, because I would love for them to get used to riding the bus. I rode the bus all around the San Francisco Bay Area when I was in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. I went from Oakland, California to San Francisco with my girlfriends in 6th grade to get my ears pierced. But people don't Kids don't even think of using the bus. And I don't think we have any full buses, so I'd love to try and experiment and try and get our youth using the buses so they understand the model and get comfortable with it.
And over the summer, don't the kids ride free? So why can't we make that year-round?
We have they don't ride free. We have a summer bus pass program where they can buy a bus that gets them for there, greatly reduced. It's $20, I believe is what it is.
There was one year I thought they did free buses for the students.
We just recently had a free program during the COVID times where we got some federal funding and everyone rode for free for a while. The only, I've seen programs where, like you're talking about. The concern that I've seen happen, personally seen happen, is that the kids, unfortunately, cause disruptions on the buses for the other customers on there, and I've seen that to the extreme of where two different rival gangs rode the bus to go to one of the bus stops and started a fight right there on the buses and everything. I would be willing to look at it, and I would see what potential it is. And then one thing, my big thing is also is I want to get fixed route buses to every high school, to every junior high, and even see if we can hit all the elementary schools, which is a little bit more trickier. But I agree with you. We should be encouraging kids to ride the bus because it is a way to get where they need to go without maybe pull them off the road and maybe reduce some of those accident statistics we were just talking about.
Well, so to clarify, what I'm trying to do is I don't want it where a gang can go disrupt a bus and go. I'm talking about the one-offs where you get a kid that's lives in West Pasco, wants to go to Land O'Lakes Culinary Institute, or was going to go to the Air Academy up in Hudson or wherever it may be. And I want those things to be accommodated where they can call in, set it up for the year, where they now have transportation back and forth.
And if
we have
Kurt,
made those
Kurt,
accommodations.
if I could just interrupt, and we're losing members by the moment. So if we could maybe continue this discussion at another time possibly, and we could move to the next item, which is Adair, because we're going to bump.
Good discussion.
Yeah, very good. And I don't mean to cut it off, but just running short on time.
No. And Commissioner, if I ever hear anything, I take care of it usually personally, and I make a good decision on that, and we have done that too.
You do a phenomenal job. I just wanted to pick up that opportunity. I thought I saw something that I wanted to work on, so appreciate you bringing it back.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Thanks so much. Okay, the next item is the Adair Road presentation. Adair, how do you say it? Whatever. Yeah, I can't.
Like potato, potato. Adair, I think is good.
So we have with us today Mr. Wally Blaine, who will be presenting this topic. At the end of the presentation, you'll see the results of the study and what Adair Road would look like. We talked about the project prioritization methodology earlier. We'd like to have an action at the end of this to see about putting Adair Road on the project prioritization list, please. So, you're on that side. Take it away.
Okay, thanks, Carl. I'm Wally Blaine with Benish. You probably know me from Tyndale Oliver. Tyndale Oliver and Benish merged back at the end of 2021, so I'm with Benish. Still the same guys working on your projects for you. The first thing I want to say is the MPO staff was supported well by the city staff, Dade City staff, as well as county staff from planning and engineering services through this study. So there's a lot of collaboration throughout the study. Just real quick, I'll skip over my overview because we're short on time, and just really get started right into this. Adair Road is at the end of the east side of Morningside Drive, where it currently ends at State Road 52 over near the fairgrounds and Pasco High School, just to give you a point of reference. So the objective here, look at the traffic impacts and the needs of future residential development. There's a lot of new development that's been permitted through the city that's ongoing in construction, a lot of active permitting of that, which is increasing the traffic through this area in the intersection. So our task was to look at an analysis of alternative intersections and designs. What could be done at the current intersection that has two-way stop control on Adair Road and Morningside Drive. State Road 52 is uninterrupted through the intersection today, and propose an intersection configuration that you'll see at the end. So we did go out and do some data collection. We did turning movement counts during the day, wanted to make sure that we captured the traditional morning and afternoon peaks as well as the school drop-off and pickup times. And what we did is we took the Morningside Drive extension study that was completed last year and made sure that we were consistent with the data that was collected through that as well. Made sure that we weren't just taking data from one point in time, but we were looking at kind of an average of what that data looked like as far as traffic counts. This map, just to show you real quick, what we highlighted on is in blue and then lime green there, the two specific residential developments that are underway and active now that would most directly impact this intersection. We did an analysis, evaluation of the traffic that would be generated from those and kind of added it into our existing counts. So we did take those existing traffic volumes that we measured, again, compared with what was done for the Morningside Drive study for consistency, did an estimate of the future trips that were generated, and then looked at, from the long-range transportation plan's perspective, what would be future forecasted, we call it background traffic, just normal natural growth, not specifically associated with new development in this area for the State Road 52 volume. So we made sure that we had a good estimate of traffic, not just from today, but what it could be like 5, 10 years into the future as we did the analysis. While we were out there doing some of the field observations, you had a great discussion about safety, so we didn't want to neglect the safety considerations here, did an analysis of that. Not necessarily an unsafe intersection today, but as traffic increases, it could become a more of a concern for safety. So we did want to note there's a lot of activity from the students that interacts with the roadway as it is today. Crossing, you can see they're crossing along State Road 52 across the existing Morningside Drive. So over the last 4 to 5 years, there's been one injury reported at this location. And those observations done during the AM, PM traditional peak hours, as well as school arrival and dismissal times. I am messing up my buttons here, sorry. So with that analysis, what we did as far as evaluating that was conducted a signal warrant analysis. The warrant analysis has 9 different tests, if you will, for evaluating the need for some kind of traffic control device at the intersection location. You can see that warrants 1, the 8-hour vehicular volume, warrant 2 is a 4-hour vehicular volume, and warrant 3 is the peak hour vehicular volume. Those are the ones that were tested for this. We did evaluate the safety warrant analysis, but because there's not a safety concern, it wasn't met for this location specifically. But those 3 warrants were met to say there does need to be some kind of control considered for the intersection. Federal Highway has developed a process called the Intersection Control Evaluation. It looks at really a high-level planning screening of what are alternative options that could be done. Once you've met the warrants, instead of just saying we're going to put in a traffic signal, let's do an evaluation of what are the different types of controls that we could look at and evaluate that. The Department of Transportation has taken that a little bit further, and they've developed a capacity, a spreadsheet. So you can put some numbers in a spreadsheet, get some quick answers out. What we discovered by going through the first stage of that is both a signal at the intersection as well as a single lane roundabout would perform sufficiently with the volume to capacity ratios. The existing configuration does not perform under the forecasted traffic volumes. So when we move then from the first stage to the second stage, we're looking at it from a safety perspective. So from just handling of traffic, the traffic signal, when you add in an additional left turn lane coming off of Adair Road onto State Road 52, performs slightly better than the roundabout did from an operations standpoint. From a safety standpoint, the roundabout performed a little bit better than just the signalized intersection did. So when we look at that and said both of them work well, one of them performs better from a safety perspective, it was the discussion with city staff as well as county staff to say there are roundabouts that are in the planning process along what is currently State Road 52 at Meridian in Dade City. It made more sense to kind of go forward and keep that as a consistent nature for the character of the corridor. So we did put in just a generalized concept. Still a planning level, hasn't gone into design. We did coordinate with engineering services, and it had engineers work on this, but haven't gone out and done the detailed survey work that you would need to do for a survey. Looking at it, there are some minor right-of-way clips and some corners that would be impacted, some specifically as far as the realignment of Morningside Drive on the south side to put in the median for safe crossing for pedestrians as well. Relocations of some culverts, because it is open drainage, it would be a little bit more, a little wider, so the culverts would need to be relocated on some of that. And our initial estimate then is at about $1.5 million for construction of the roundabout at that location. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but yeah, the recommendation that went through the Citizens Advisory Committee, Technical Advisory Committee, was to approve the project, the recommendation for a roundabout, and move that onto the priority projects list.
Do we have any questions?
Yep, I like the roundabout.
Comment. First of all, thank you for being here, bringing this very timely. Yes, there's so much going on in there, and yes, I know the residents will be happy. The growth is already happening there in addition to others happening. So I think this is I'd love to see this put on the list and get that done. I think it's going to check off all the boxes of safety and improve traffic and all the things that we need in that area.
Great.
So definitely
Make
support
that
it.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve this and add it to list of priority projects for future consideration.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to add this to the priority list. Can we have?
Do we have a quorum?
Yep,
Yes.
five.
Okay.
Yeah, hurry up before we lose more.
Mayor Camille Hernandez.
Aye.
Todd McLary. Councilman Matt Murphy.
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Oakley. Commissioner Mike Moore. Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick. Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Aye.
Chairman Lance Smith.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, too.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
All right, the next item is the executive update.
Thank you very much. A couple quick things. One of the things I wanted to share with you, given the cycle of the development of the Florida DOT work program, which is their 5-year schedule of projects, it comes out of the legislature. They have to look at what the legislature passed, what funding they have available, and then they develop that list. That becomes our TIP. We may have a need to hold a very brief May meeting to accept or start the public involvement process for the draft TIP, as well as potentially the draft LOPP, LOP. So I want to make you aware of that. So I want to talk a little bit about legislative earmarks. We have a number of them this year in the legislature from Pasco County and frankly in District 7. So how earmarks work, first of all, they have to come from a legislator. They can be for a variety of items. I'm going to tell you that we're interested in transportation earmarks, and each of those categories are handled differently. Sometimes those earmarks can do more harm than good. I'll get into a little bit of the detailing of that. But an earmark basically moves up to the top of the list of project priorities and bypasses those that we have developed here collaboratively. Unfortunately, it is a zero-sum game. Florida DOT gets a budget. Those earmarks have to come out of that budget. It is not additional money thrown on top. So then it competes against those other things that are in the budget. It does then limit, of course, our ability to select our projects. The danger we get into is that an earmark going forward, if the governor would line item veto a earmarked project that is transportation, we lose the project and we also lose the money that goes with it. So if it's, say, a $100 million project and the governor says no, the DOT district does not get that money back. That's already been taken out of their budget. So that's where we can get into a lot of difficulty. If it is a project that is already in the work program and is an earmark that gets vetoed, DOT is prohibited from working on that project during the 5-year work program. So at the earliest, it goes out to year 6. So we have to be very cautious of that. And I'm moving through this rather quickly because I'm looking at the time, and I know your stomachs are probably telling you that lunch is not far away. So Florida DOT does have a number of statutes out there, but the highlights of it are they are required first to do the maintenance of the roads and bridges. The legislature has said, we take care of what we have, and it reflects in our system. They do a phenomenal job of that. I'm a big fan of the work they do. Second, they are to fund the strategic intermodal system in a nutshell. That is our high-use facilities or high-importance facilities. So think of your interstates, international airports, so forth. And it goes down further than just the interstates, but it is those facilities that are critical to our economy. Then they can fund other projects, and this is where you'll typically find the projects in our list of project priorities, so we're further down on that. The earmarks go above all of that and go even before maintenance. So in an example, say that District 7 has a $1 billion budget. They get $100 million in earmarks. Then they have $400 million in maintenance, and you can see there's $500 million remaining. Suddenly we add into there the CIS, and we're carving down, and we're suddenly down to $200 million of remaining budget. But if we have $200 million in earmarks, we're done. We've just spent all the money that's available. So just a quick example, wanted to walk everyone through it and give you awareness of that. So this is a summary of it. Basically, they're going to compete against our projects for funding. So let me talk about the RAISE grant. This is good news. This is money from US DOT that is not part of the DOT budget. And it was just announced from our friends at FHWA on January 28th. It was in the Federal Register on February 4th. So my thanks to our friends at FHWA for getting this ahead of time.
Yeah.
RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. We'll go with RAISE. There's $1.5 billion available nationally, which represents a 50% increase over the last round of these grants. However, I will forewarn you, last year, there were $10 of requests for every dollar that was available. So it is competitive. If we're going in, we've got to pick something that's going to hammer this and meet all the criteria. Deadline for submittal is April 14th, the day before tax day, at 5 p.m. It's also the anniversary of the day the Titanic started sinking, 110 years before. They promised to do selections by August 12th. So last year they had 90 projects. Here's a list of what you'll see in there, and you'll notice that you don't see road as a project title, unfortunately. You see at the very bottom I put in complete streets. That is a road, a street. All right, moving forward. This is one.
Can you go back for a second?
You got it.
So I see Tampa Heights.
Yep.
Did the one in St. Pete, that Sun Runner, is that a RAISE grant or is that something else?
I can't speak to that. I just simply don't know. There were 90 projects. I just grabbed the sampling to give you a flavor of what was funded. But I think there may have been a couple there was more than just that one in Florida.
That was an FTA grant, so that was a Federal Transit Administration grant, not a RAISE grant.
Okay.
Thank you. So, from the U.S., this is, by the way, this is one of many discretionary grant opportunities that will be coming available over the course of the year and in the new federal transportation bill. There's one coming up later this year that is non-motorized safety, very specific. Again, looking at what we were just talking about earlier, we're going to go after that as well, I hope. So, from the US DOT website, they want us to look at climate change, racial equity, and removing barriers to opportunity. New this year, and they specifically called out these areas of focus: workforce development, creating jobs where you can join a union, creating jobs for that underserved communities can access, supporting worker opportunities. Construction ready is best, but not required. All right, from the NOFO, which is Notice of Funding Opportunity, they talked about some basic factors in there: safety, economic strength, global competitiveness, so forth, and you can see these on here. They're also, we'll be happy to make these available. But you can see it kind of covers quite a gamut here. And it continues on: greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, incorporating electrification or zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. But definitely a green type of theme to the qualifications or items they're looking for. And the top one is interesting to me: incorporating lower carbon pavement and construction materials. Haven't seen that one before, but even recycling brownfields, and you'll see addressing environmental justice at the bottom of that list. That was specifically called out, and they gave us a definition. Now, this is from the Environmental Protection Agency, so it doesn't always translate perfectly to transportation, but you can read it there yourself. And they are looking for projects that dedicate 40% of the resources towards low-income communities. We have to sufficiently consider climate change and environmental justice in our planning of a project that would be submitted, and proactively address racial equity barriers to opportunity, including auto dependence. And those are specifically called out. That has to be in the application. Closing date again, April 14th. Projects announced by August 12th. It does require a 20% match, And an entity submitting a project has to be able to implement the project. So that is the summary of this. And I'd like to open up for questions. We have an interest just because it's money.
Yeah.
And I think you've heard me say before, I'm very, very interested in going after money.
Commissioner Mariano.
Carol, and just seeing this detail is gonna kind of stir something that a lot of us are familiar with. Over in Newport Richey, over in the Leisure Beach area, Leisure Lane area, Van Duren, Cracker Barrel, the Kia dealership. There's an area that we have is 2 streets that have just been demolished. The county bought 51 lots of property. Habitat for Humanity come in and put in 8 lots, already built homes. They raised them up, and we still have all those other lots to go in, but we need like 2.3 million in infrastructure for water sewer connections, and then we need to redo the roads, so kind of like a clean street thing. You could do something for low-income folks in there big time and really elevate that area up. Is that something that would be applicable, you think?
It's starting to sound like, I'd want to look at it more carefully. The one thing I will mention, and I moved through these rather quickly, grants are to be between 5 and 25 million.
Okay,
That doesn't, and you mentioned 2.5, we can always find other things to add in
Oh,
there.
because that's just the water sewer.
Yeah,
So for everything else going in there, I think you got some opportunity.
yeah, I don't know about the water sewer being eligible, but it may be something I don't know if we could incorporate that or not, but we'd have to take a look at that. I'll have to get those 2 streets you're mentioning, but I've written down
Van
the Leisure
Buren
Beach area.
and
What is it?
Leisure Lane.
Yeah,
Is that what
Leisure
you're
Lane and
talking
Van
about?
Duren, yeah.
Yeah. Then,
Right below Cross Bayou.
Okay, thank you. We're also looking at the list of project priorities to see, what would be a good fit for
Yeah.
this, as well as, I mentioned the upcoming non-motorized safety. Want to look at that. Once we see the notice of funding opportunity for that safety grant, we'll have some details as to what they're targeting.
and I see a lot of trails on there. And I don't think Pasco's ever had a raised grant, or what was it called before?
Build and then Tiger before that.
And I actually met Charles from FTA, who looks at these in Washington at the NACO conference. And I have his personal contact information.
Now,
I told him we're gonna do something.
And as a matter of caution, I will forewarn you, traditionally, you put in for this multiple times before you get funded.
Yeah.
And, at a 10-to-1 ratio for the competitiveness, persistence is key here.
Anything else on this? So.
No, the only other,
Glad that we're going after.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to get, if they say no, what's the harm,
well, I take the adage, you can't get awarded a grant if you don't apply. The last thing is, we've been looking at our expenses here at the MPO, and we are going through a lot of expense on printing. Show of hands for who wants a printed copy and who would be happy with the PDF you received from us. So who wants a printed copy here at the meetings? Y'all are making it real easy for my budget. Thank you. All right, that wraps it up, unless you have any questions for me under the executive director update. Otherwise, we'll move to member comments. Oh, Jensen, do you want to say anything? Okay, you're good? Sorry.
Yes, okay. Now we'll just go to member comment. Commissioner Starkey?
It's something that Jack brought up, but I talked, I had heard from David Green from T-BARTA that the CSX rail line was kind of a no-go anymore for discussion. Upon clarification with my conversation with David Gwynn last night, CSX will no longer sell their line, but they will consider leasing it with all these conditions.
Wow.
So I think it's still in effect.
It's a risk.
Not viable. And,
Big
you know,
risk.
I'm not going to speak for Secretary Gwynn, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't,
Wow.
I want to speak factually. So, that's
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Commissioner Mariano?
Carl, is there anything we should do as far as the county line project working with Hernando? As far as the board, to support them in any way?
I think probably the number one thing is that we make sure we are coordinated with Hernando. We have it on the list of project priorities, having it there, and then working with Hernando so that we have a clear arrangement or understanding of how the funding would go. and what participation we would be asking from Florida DOT. I think that's the key. Number one, let's make sure we're staying in touch with them.
Now, right now, I think they have, is it $15 million in a legislative ask from President Simpson?
I looked at the list recently. There's about $176 million of transportation asks from Pasco County alone. And I don't recall all of them,
Okay.
so I apologize. But I do believe that is in there. I just don't recall what the amount was on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had one more thing, that when we were in Tallahassee, we did mention to Senator Simpson about the fact that Pasco County residents are paying for their overpasses along the Sun Coast, while other counties were fortunate to have the state pick up the tab for their overpasses. And he believes he has come up with a way to get us funding for those overpasses, but they need to be shovel-ready, and so, and he instructed us, as soon as we had something ready to go, we were to send it to him. So just want to make sure we are getting that done, so we can get in line for the money that he feels he has, that he can help pay for those overpasses. And then we can take that money, which was penny for Pasco money, directed to transportation and trails, put on another trail, which would be wonderful.
And Carl says as long as it's not an earmark, he's cool with it. No. Commissioner Fitz.
And just to touch base earlier on the one project, Commissioner Starkey, you mentioned earlier about landscaping. And if we can just remember the 3% budget for landscaping from FDOT, maybe we can move some of the
We
funds
always
there.
have to ask. If you don't ask, they're not going to give it to you.
Very good. Anything else? Well, I want to thank everybody for staying for the longer meeting. I want to also thank Todd McCleary, Councilman, for filling in. I appreciate that. And we're happy that Fort Richey is here, and we're happy Newport Richey is here too. Just glad to have the cities here. Nothing else, the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Nice little